Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, hi. So, good afternoon. Are you all there? Okay, so this afternoon we'll be looking at the secondary industry in terms of oil and natural gas. And hopefully, we can get through oil and natural gas and mining. Hi, Italia. Good afternoon. It's the first time I'm seeing you commenting, so it's nice. Welcome to the live. Um, so feel free to tell me which part of the country you're from or which school you attend, whatever you feel more comfortable sharing. Orlando, hi. First time I'm seeing you as well. So y'all can just tell me where y'all, which part of the country you're from or which school you attend, whichever you feel comfortable typing in the chat. So today we're going to be looking at the secondary industry because industry is covered under the broad topics. It's one of the topics that is definitely under the human system section for your broad topics will be industries in the Caribbean. So far we looked at forestry and fishing under the primary industry. And today we're going to look at, oh, okay, nice. Are you a geography student sitting exams as well soon? Oh, you're from Jamaica. Nice, nice. But there's a really good Jamaican teacher as well who does live classes, I think. Natkin Educational Services. You heard about that channel before? She's good. She has really good content. And I think geography will. So let me type those in. So if you all are studying, you all will have more sources to look at, which might be very helpful during this time. Which part of Jamaica are you from? Because I did my bachelor's in Jamaica, my bachelor in Jamaica. I studied geography actually in Jamaica. Oh, you are very good. How are you feeling? How is the preparation coming along so far? Okay, you're from Davie. Nice to meet you. Okay, great. So I usually start at 10 past Hanover. I don't know that area, but I've been to some parts of Jamaica, like Clarendon, Negril, Montego Bay, St. Anne's. Well, I studied in Kingston, Muna, right? So I usually start at 10, give students some time to come on. I know a lot of people are probably preparing for literature tomorrow. So they're probably really busy in terms of, preparing for the literature exam. Okay, so I guess we can start. Hi, Asa. Nice to have you here. Miss Lynn O'May told me that she knows you, so it's nice to know someone familiar teaches you. So I know your teacher personally. So today we're looking at oil and natural gas. So tell me, for all the Trinidadians, you all should know a bit more about this. And when we get to bauxite in Jamaica, Italia, you should tell me a lot more about the bauxite industry in Jamaica. So I'm going through two case studies because I want you all to have more options for the exam, right? I really want you all to be comfortable with whatever they bring. So if they bring petroleum and they ask you for factors affecting petroleum, you would understand those. And if they ask you about bauxite, you will also have a good handle on both of them, right? So we're going to look at both quickly today. So petroleum industry in Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidadians. So what do you all know about oil and natural gas, or and natural gas in our country? What do you all know? So in terms of location, remember when you're looking at industry, the important things that you have to cover is factors influencing the location of the industry. You have to look at the challenges, the trends and challenges, and then solutions, right? And benefits of the industry. So let's go. So what factors influence the location of the oil and natural gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago? Anyone that is out there? All right, so point 14, point 14 has an oil and gas company as well, so like Atlantic LNG, right? So what really influences the location of oil and natural gas in Trinidad and Tobago? It's basically, you know, let me see if I can bring up the slides a bit bigger for you all to be able to see. Is that any better? I hope you all can see that a bit better. Right? So it is basically the the abundance of oil and natural gas that we have in Trinidad and Tobago is basically because of our rock composition. Trinidad and Tobago, our geology, we have a lot of sedimentary rocks, right? So the natural resource, oil and gas, is readily available. And oil and gas tends to form in sedimentary rock as gas traps. So, what is very important to remember is that the geology of Trinidad and Tobago makes it ideal for makes it really ideal for the extraction of oil and natural gas, because oil and natural gas naturally forms here, right? So we have both onshore and offshore oil resources. So remember that. But a lot of what we exploit is offshore, right? We do have land, we do extract oil from beneath the land, but the majority that we extract oil and gas is from offshore sources, meaning in the sea. So if you look at the PowerPoint that is up here, and this is from the CSEC geography, you would see that there's an offshore platform, right? And that is what we call an oil rig, right? Better known as a platform. And of course, that is what they use to drill deep beneath the sea floor, right? The seabed to extract oil, and it is extracted from a well. So, oil and natural gas in Trinidad is found because of the geology. So it is extracted from deep below the seabed, right? It is formed between impermeable rocks. So it is trapped between impermeable rocks, and then they are extracted from beneath the seabed, right, or under the sea, from using what we call a well, right? They drill a well into the seabed, and then they pump that oil and gas from below, and then they filter it into the pipelines. So we use seismic surveys. Anybody have an idea what is a seismic survey? Good afternoon, Calicia. Nice to see you here today. Anyone have an idea what is a seismic survey? So what a seismic survey is, it's basically a type of survey that is done, right, using what we call seismic waves to really pick up or explore where we can find oil and natural gas. So, two things you need to remember when you're exploring for oil and natural gas, there are two phases. You have the exploration phase, and then you have the development phase. Hi, Isabel. Right? So you have the exploration phase, which is where they would use seismic surveys, and they will go and they would actually do this survey using these seismic activity in terms of these seismic waves to pick up or to read the seafloor, and then find out where you can really put this oil rig to drill for gas, right? Oil and natural gas. And then the that is the exploration phase. The the development phase is where you actually start to pump oil from the well itself. After you explore, then you develop it. Everybody understand that? Hi, Wes. I should have some Unit 2 classes over the weekend and over the weekend and next week, because your exam is on the 6th, right? Hi, Tina. Nice to have you from Barbados and Jamaica in the house today. It's nice to have you all on, right? So we're just discussing industries in the Caribbean, and we're looking at the secondary industry, petroleum and natural gas in Trinidad and Tobago, right? So the drilling of an oil costs approximately over $100 million, and that is per day. So drilling of oil is very expensive, right? And then sometimes, you can have problems while drilling, right? So before you actually start to produce oil, right? It is an investment to actually explore for oil, because sometimes you explore for oil and then you don't find oil. Do you all believe that? So you explore an area and then there is no oil in that area that can be extracted. So it's very costly. So in Trinidad and Tobago, the location of the oil and gas fields mostly to the south of the country. So you would see Point Lisas, Point Pierre, San Fernando, Point Fortin, Galeota, and you would see the gas fields are further offshore. Are you all seeing that? So we in Trinidad, we actually pump a lot more natural gas than oil, right? We get more natural gas than oil, and it is more to the south of the island. So just remember that, right? So in terms of when we look at the factors now, you look at the you have to look at raw materials, right? Raw materials, you have to look at transportation, you have to look at markets. So how oil and gas are processed and used. So, oil and gas can basically be classified into the both industries. You can have it under primary, where you extract the oil and gas, or then it can become under the secondary industry where it is processed, or it is then treated and it becomes into crude crude oil and gas that can now be used. Everybody understand that? So it becomes refined, right? So in Trinidad and Tobago, we set up our own oil refinery, and this oil refinery was formerly called Petrotrin. I'm not too sure if you all know that Petrotrin is closed down. It's officially closed, and it was being sold. They privatized it because it was operating for a loss, right? But initially, we had our own, the government, it was government owned Petrotrin, the point of pay oil refinery, was partly government owned. And of course, then, of course, with the recent discovery of shale gas in the US, it drove oil and gas prices very low. I'm not too sure if you all know about this. So oil prices went very, very low. That what happened, that our price of gas and oil that we were selling, well, it fell very, very low. And because of that, we actually we actually was operating on a loss because we didn't have markets to now sell oil and gas as we used to previously. That US market was now smaller. So in terms of market, Trinidad and Tobago produce 0.2 of the world's oil and 1.4% of the oil's natural gas. And of course, our major markets are to the US, right? And you would see how is how is that oil actually transported. So when they extract oil, right, they extract it from the wells, then it is transported via a pipeline transportation system. So we really use the pipeline in which to get it back onto the land, where it is then utilized in the oil refining. It becomes, the crude oil becomes refined, right? And then we can then export it. So the markets would be, of course, right, the value of the oil and gas industry in Trinidad is really in the exporting of natural gas. So the value of that is very valuable when it is refined. So then we shipped it off to the US. So markets, right, would be the US market. In terms of South America as well, we also export a bit to South America, right? A small percentage, right? And of course, the majority goes to North America, to the US market. So that is location. In terms of that, we talk about the raw material, oil and gas being found offshore and online. It is exploited through the drilling process by offshore platforms or wells that extract them, and then they are sold to the market. We talk about capital. Capital is the money needed to invest in the oil and gas industry. Of course, oil and gas, as I just told you, is very expensive. So the factor of capital, remember that it is very expensive, over 100 million US to explore for oil. So oil comes in two stages: the exploration and the development stage. Everybody understand that? You all understand those factors? How you would go through those factors for the exam? So how, what are some of the benefits of oil and gas? So we know the factors influencing its location. We know how it's transported through pipelines, right, from offshore, extracted through the wells through pipelines, and of course, then they are exported to the markets. We know the market. We know that it needs heavy capital for investment, and of course, um, we know its location. what about the uses of oil or the benefits of oil and gas? What are some of the benefits of the oil and gas industry? Benefits of the oil and gas industry. Oh, certainly, at times the exploration phase can be more costly than the developmental phase, because at the exploration phase, sometimes you can explore a gas field, as they would say, or an oil field, and you may not be able to find a source, which means that that money is really lost. But at the development phase of it, you regain some of the money after it is exported and you get the revenue from it. So the exploration phase is a heavy investment. And in Trinidad, one thing I should also mention is that we have a lot of multinational companies that does the exploration for us, or we have entered into contracts with companies like British Gas, British Petroleum, um, EOG, Repsol, Schlumberger, these international companies. And when we enter contracts with them, we actually pay. Um, they will come and explore, and then of course when they extract the oil, a lot of the money goes back to them, because they actually put in the money for the exploration fee. So a lot of it, when the revenue is earned, is also, it doesn't stay in the country, it goes back out to them. We earn like probably a 1 or 2% of the total revenue earned. You all understand that, which is very small. Does it add to the country's GDP? Of course, Orlando. It is our major revenue earner in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Oil and natural gas is a major revenue earner, right? So it adds to our revenue, right? What are some uses of natural gas? Do you all know how natural gas is used, and the benefits of natural gas? So one of the things in terms of Trinidad and Tobago, we have benefited from exploring the oil and gas industry, because in Trinidad, our electricity rates are very cheap. Our fuel is very cheap. If you go to other Caribbean islands, and I'm sure those students in Barbados, like Tina, and Italia, in Jamaica, they can tell you that, you know, the price of gas and oil and gas and electricity and those things over there can be quite costly, because they don't have what we call, we have a lot of subsidies placed on the oil and gas resources in the country. You all understand that? So one of the benefits is that we have, of course, um, revenue that it adds to the economy, that allow us to experience um, lower lower rates, lower electricity rates. We have cheaper gas and fuel rates than other Caribbean islands. Do you all understand that? All right, good. Okay, so let us go along now. Right? Any other, any other benefits? So we said it contributes to the GDP, right? We also have subsidies in the country that allow for us to experience cheaper fuel rates. The technology, right, that is used in the oil and gas industry um, helps us to discover or continue to cover oil, right? Oil and natural gas. So you would see here manufacturing, it also allows us to have byproducts. So we have a heavy byproducts industry that we utilize from the oil and gas industry that allows us to produce other products. So we also get into manufacturing of chemicals and steel for export. And of course, liquefied natural gas is chilled and exported by tankers, right? So it has to be chilled to keep it um, to maintain its good state. Reduce the cost of fertilizer. Yes, so we have a big aluminum industry from the byproducts of oil and natural gas, right? And that has really developed in a big way. So, what are some problems? What are some threats? What are some threats to the oil and gas industry? Let us look at what are some threats now. What are some threats to the oil and gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago? What are some threats? What are some challenges or some problems with the oil and gas industry? What is common with the oil and gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago? What do we have often? We have a lot of oil spills, and sometimes it conflicts with other economic activities like the fishing industry. So if we have oil fields in the same area where fishermen are also fishing and getting their main source of livelihood, and then you have an oil spill like in the Labre area, right? The Labre area, then of course there's conflicts between the economic activities in the area, and then oil spill leads to destruction of habitat, fish kills, so a lot of fishes die, right? A lot of environmental problems as well, because you all know, if you ever check out Petrochin or Point of Pierre, you notice that the gas is burning all day, so that is a lot of um, chemicals released into the air. So we have the environmental problems where oil is burning and CO2 and greenhouse gases is released into the environment, right? Also, it is a non-renewable resource. Very good, ASA. Non-renewable, right? It is not. We can. I don't think oil is really running out, but we are exploiting it at a very fast rate. So it may be depleted very quickly, right? And it does not recover or it does not renew. So that's the problem. Yes, Isabel, right? So it creates pollution, and countries are going, a lot of countries are now moving to renewable energy, which means that there's now competition from other industries. Do you all understand that? Do you all understand those points? Right? The resources, the oil and gas resource is not renewable, so it is also limited, right? And if we are extracting it at a very fast rate, then it will be depleted quickly. Everybody think they understand the oil and gas industry, the case study for it? Everyone get that? Okay, so let us move on to the next secondary industry. Another secondary industry is mining in Jamaica. Mining in Jamaica. So mining, anybody know what are the factors that influence the location of the mining industry in Jamaica? So we're looking at mining in Jamaica, and there's also mining in Guyana as well. So whatever case study you choose, but I'm going to do um, mining in Jamaica, right? So what is bauxite? Bauxite mining, in this case, we're talking about bauxite mining. What is bauxite mining? Anybody know what is bauxite? So, so bauxite is the ore, like you know how you have an iron ore? Bauxite is the ore which comes from aluminum, right? And in Jamaica, Jamaica contains some of the largest deposits of bauxite in the world, right? Um, Mining in Jamaica, in terms of its location, just how we have oil and gas located to the south, mostly to the south in Trinidad, in Jamaica, mining is mainly found in the western and central parts of the island, right? Italia, are you understanding me? Because I remember the last Jamaican students said I was speaking a bit fast. Very good, right? So, Isabel, it comes from aluminum, right? It's an ore, right? It's an ore which is made from aluminum, and it is found in the western and central parts of Jamaica. Jamaica is known for bauxite mining in the world, right? Just like Trinidad and Tobago, after mining the bauxite, right, it is taken to aluminum plants where it is refined into alumina. Okay, good. Okay, Dre, no problem. I know you have literature tomorrow. So those who have literature tomorrow, all the best, and y'all could always replay the live. That's okay. But we're looking at bauxite, and we did petroleum and natural gas yesterday. Dre, Streamlabs, with the rain, I don't want to take the chance. So when the rain fall up and I don't have internet problems, I will try Streamlabs out again. I really didn't get the time to test it out over because I was busy today, right? So no problem. So bauxite, yes, Asa, very good. So bauxite, when they get that raw bauxite, it then has to be taken into a refinery, just like how we refine petroleum, right? Oil. It's the same way aluminum is refined into alumina. And then this alumina, right, is then exported. And the main transport that is used to export the alumina is rail, right? Railways, right? So most of Jamaican bauxite is refined into alumina, and of course, it is then marketed to large international companies that would then sell, then that they can then sell it to, right? So there are other producers of bauxite in the Caribbean, and other major producers would be countries like Guyana and Suriname. So Guyana and Suriname, they also produce bauxite, which means that Jamaica will have a little competition, right? And in total, the Caribbean countries back then, they accounted for 44% of the world's supply of bauxite, right? Other major producers in the world of bauxite are Jamaica, China, India, right? And Australia is the largest producer of bauxite. So, what are some of the factors now? Let's go into the factors that influence the location of the bauxite industry. So we went through all of this. Bauxite is an ore, it is refined into alumina. Alumina is smelted and it is a powerful flow for electricity, right? Aluminum is also used in cooking, foil, making aircraft. So this is what I was just speaking about in terms of the other countries of the world. And you can see that Australia is the largest bauxite producer in the world. Everybody's seeing that, right? So you see here in the Caribbean countries, Guyana 22%, Jamaica, sorry, 22%, Guyana 11, Suriname 11, right? And then you have, of course, China, Indonesia, Brazil, India that also exports bauxite. So, what influences bauxite, right? So, we said that the location it's mainly to the west. In terms of transport, aluminum is mainly transported through rail transport in Jamaica, right? And to the ports, right? So, they move them by railway to the actual ports to get them exported to North America. Which markets do Jamaica sell their bauxite to? Or bauxite is sold to? Bauxite is sold to the North American continent of course, the US, right? And the labor, where does the labor come from? Just like in Trinidad, I did mention it. We have international expertise that comes in because sometimes we hire the MNCs for labor. So a large percentage, as well as local, make up the labor supply for petroleum. But for bauxite, where does the labor supply come from? So in terms of the bauxite plants that are set up, they are also set up very close to the bauxite deposits. So in the western part and central part of the country, you have the bauxite plants, and therefore a lot of the parishes in Jamaica, like St. Anne's, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, and Trelawney, those areas, of course, is where the bauxite is located, and then you have also the bauxite plants. So a lot of the workers also would come from that area, right? So that takes care of the labor supply, that takes care of the location of the industry. It also would take care of we talk about transport already, right? So roads and railways are the main form of transporting bauxite, right, to the ports. And in terms of capital again, large amounts of capital is needed to invest in the bauxite industry because just like oil and natural gas, it is a raw material that has to be refined for it to be of better use. Everyone understand what I'm saying? right? So they also export some of the aluminum, right, to the US industries where it can also be further processed, right? What are some challenges of the bauxite industry now? What are some of the challenges that the bauxite industry face? What are some of the challenges of the bauxite industry, or what the bauxite industry faces? Some of the challenges. In terms of the industry, the mining industry, yes, it is both labor intensive and capital intensive, Isabel. It's just like Trinidad and Tobago, where people that work offshore, they work for very long hours. Um, it's the same for the bauxite industry, because you remember these refining industry, it's also high risk environment because of the pollutants that people are actually directly involved with, right? When they have to refine the alumina, the bauxite into alumina, right? That is the problem. Yes, so it is both capital, a lot of money is needed for the refining process, but a lot of labor is also needed for both bauxite and oil and natural gas. And there are health hazards, yes, as you suggest, and the wages, well, we know that oil and gas pays well, right, in Trinidad and Tobago. In terms of bauxite, um, I'm not too sure if they are paid as high because bauxite is not as expensive as oil, but of course they would be paid um, a good amount. So some of the challenges is that bauxite in Jamaica has to compete with other countries of the world. So they are competing with China, India, Australia, which is the largest, which means that they have competition just like in the oil and other gas industry. Other suppliers may have the bauxite cheaper, very good ASA, right? Also, there are smelters in terms of smelter plants that are now being constructed in other continents, like in Europe and Asia and South America, which means that um, there's also more competition, right? And North America is no longer the main producer of aluminum. So that is another thing. Also, the wages, right, that have to be paid. Yes, Isa, just like oil and gas, the wages that they have to pay is a bit higher than other countries, right? So bauxite mining is very expensive, right? And then what they do as well, remember, sometimes the bauxite industry ships a lot of their bauxite to the US to further be refined. So it means that they use the Caribbean bauxite for their plants because it might cost them cheaper to actually import it, right? Because the shipping costs are now lower and has dropped, which means that now we really, because we are not refining, they are making the majority of the money when they refine it. Do you all understand that? Could a problem be that bauxite plants are taking farm space? Okay, Isabel, when you have competition for land use, you can say that competition for land use, because there was a case in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know if you all remember this, but they wanted to actually build a smelter plant here at one point, and it was in an area where the residents, it was rural, but the residents did not want it because they said that, the problems or the pollution that comes from the aluminum and the smelter would have been hazardous to the residents. So they really, really didn't want it in their community. So you can't say that there's competition for other land land use activities in the case of whether it's farming or um, another type of industry or residential. People homes are built there. Also, another challenge is that they rely on the US for their as their main market, and if they are relying on the US, if demand is reduced, then who are they going to ship their bauxite to? They need to have other markets, right? So relying on one major country as your main market becomes problematic. Again, bauxite um, produces a lot of red mud, or and sometimes it is not disposed of safely, or it's not treated safely, and it gets into rivers and ponds nearby, which of course will cause a lot of environmental problems, right? So you can have, again, um, when it's also being refined, you have a lot of burn off of the gas and all of that in the atmosphere that can also cause environmental problems, right? Vegetation is destroyed to build smelter plants, right? Especially if you're building it, you have to find a lot of land space, and a lot of forest is cleared to construct smelter plants, or to even mine for the bauxite. You are destroying forests, you are removing it, and then it is expensive to repair machinery when they stop working. So, what are the solutions to some of the issues? Um, some of the solution would be to treat the environmental problems. For example, finding more suitable ways to dispose of the red mud so that it will not harm the environment, right? Also, being able to open up themselves to other markets, finding other markets will help the bauxite industry to be more profitable, right? And basically implementing laws for reforestation and afforestation of areas where they actually mine for bauxite. So reforestation is very important. Everybody understand the case studies of bauxite and the oil and gas industry? Do you think you can answer the factors affecting the location, the trends and challenges of the industry, and possible solutions that you can have? Okay, so let us go into the answering of questions now. A few questions that they tend to bring. The question is, define the term secondary industry and give one example of a secondary industry that you have studied. So put the answers in the chat. We answering the CXC past paper questions on industry now. So, question, define the term the secondary industry and give one example of a secondary industry that you have studied. The other question is state two economic So question one, define the term in secondary industry and give one example of a secondary industry that you have studied. The second one is state two economic factors which may influence the location of a secondary economic activity. Asanya, very good. It's nice to see you. So a secondary industry is manufacturing goods from raw materials, example, sugar from rum, sugar to rum, but you have to state an industry that you have studied. So you have to give an example of one that we did, right? So remember the secondary industry is one which takes the raw materials from the primary industry and converts it into something new, or we can say manufacture, convert, process. So the manufacturing industry is not just the secondary industry, sorry, is not only manufacturing, but it deals with processing, it deals with the conversion and assembling or the production of new products. Everybody understand that? Are you all following me with that? Good, right? And give me an example. One example is bauxite mining in Jamaica. Very good. Another example is oil and gas refining, right? Oil and gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Very good. Change raw materials by adding value to produce a finished product. Very good, Orlando. Very good. Example, manufacture. But I want you all to take note that the syllabus, right, outlines the case studies for you. And they said, give one example of a secondary industry that you have studied. So that you have studied, meaning they really want you to give an example of the case study or of one of the case study that you use, right? So in this case, you will have to say bauxite mining or oil and natural gas. So let me just show you all, if you all are not sure where that comes from on the syllabus. So let me tell you all what objectives it comes under in the syllabus. So in your syllabus, you would see that comes under human system, and it's under the content 12. So you would see factors influencing location of the industry, fishing or forestry, oil and natural gas, bauxite, and they have food processing, right? So remember that. So the secondary industry would be refining of oil and natural gas, or the refining of aluminum, right? Remember I tell you, petroleum and natural gas and bauxite can be also in the primary industry where they just extract it, but when it's refined, then it's the secondary. Good. So the second question that I asked you all was to state two economic factors which may influence the location of a secondary industry. So economic, when you hear economic, you should think about money, right? So or you can also state for the secondary industry, the garment industry or the food processing industry. So I also forgot to mention that. So the garment industry or the food processing industry in the Caribbean, food processing or the garment industry. You could say oil refining. You have to use the word refining, right? Or bauxite refining to be able to qualify as secondary. Um, so three, the question is two economic factors. What are two economic factors that influence the location of secondary activity? So one would be the cost of labor, right? So a secondary industry in terms of, let us think of like a oil refinery or a bauxite plant or a food processing industry. They want to access cheap labor, or they want an availability or a supply of labor. So what you would find is that they tend to locate in an area where they will have a ready supply of labor, and where also you can get a, a, a cheaper cost for labor supply, right? Another thing is that government offer incentives for the secondary industry. So economic incentives, for example, to develop certain industries. So we know that oil and gas industry in our country has benefited a lot from certain tax exemptions and so forth. So economic incentives from governments. So I want you all to remember that. So two economic factors that influence the location is the cost of labor, cost and availability of labor, right? Also transport, right? Cost and availability of transport. You can also put in their markets as well, right? So you want to locate close to the market, having a market, and also economic incentives will also decide where they locate, because sometimes a government will tell industries where exactly to locate. Everybody understand that? And three ways which countries can benefit from the development of secondary industries. Three ways. What are three ways by which countries can benefit from secondary industries? Three ways by which countries can benefit from the development of a secondary industry. So, how do they benefit from the food processing industry, the oil and gas industry, the aluminum bauxite industry? How do countries benefit from this? Good. So value is added to products. Good. Isabel, how is it important when you say the importance of the industry? In what way is it important? So, yes, it adds value to products, which means what? So, when you say it adds value, which means what, Michaela? It means that it earns foreign exchange for the country, because then you can export your raw material, or you can export the refined material, and that way you get more money. So it contributes to the GDP of the country. So remember, that contributes to the overall GDP of the country. What is GDP? Anybody know what is GDP? The gross domestic product. Very good, Sydney. So the gross domestic product, what does that mean? What is the gross domestic product? So you all know what it is. What is the gross domestic product? It is the total goods and services produced in a country. So the GDP is the total goods and services produced in the country. And then you have the GNP. What is the GNP? So the difference between GDP and GNP. So one, you have, right, the gross domestic product is the total value of the goods and services produced by people in a country. Very good, Michaela, right? And then the gross national product is what? Is the total goods and services, and it includes the foreign revenue earned from exports, right? So the GNP, the gross national product, includes the total goods and services of people by the country, produced by people in the country, or the goods produced in the country, as well as foreign revenue, right, earned from export. So the secondary industry benefits the countries in two ways. It improves the GDP or contributes to the GDP of the country, and it also contributes to the GNP because it also um, earns foreign revenue from the refined products or the raw materials that it is exported. Also, another benefit is that it provides labor, provides employment, right? In the form of labor, right? When people work in these industries. So it provides jobs for low skill labor. And also it reduces imports. So it reduces imports, right? GNP is, yes, Isabel, GDP plus foreign revenue earned, right? Excellent, right? So it provides employment and it also reduces imports. Everybody understand those? How you would answer those questions for your exam? So what about this question we answered yesterday with fishing and forestry? So they ask you explain three challenges faced by the mining industry. Explain three challenges faced by the mining industry. So three challenges faced by the mining industry. So we just spoke about those. Three challenges faced by the mining industry. Three challenges faced by the mining industry. I just spoke about three of the challenges. Nobody. So we talked about environmental pollution being one challenge where the mining of bauxite produces red mud, right? So environmental problems such as red mud, right? You have the lack of markets, right? Lack of markets because there's only they depend, so that is a challenge, depend mainly on the US, right? So red mud also, it results in a lot of deforestation. A lot of labor needed. Yes, it's very labor intensive. Labor intensive. Very labor intensive. Sydney, this is for CSEC, right? Very labor intensive and also capital intensive. Yes, capital intensive. The industry needs a lot of capital and you have to pay high wages, right? Because it's a high risk job. So, yes, Michaela, pollution in terms of red mud also with the smelter industry, it gives off a lot of pollutants. It can be hazardous to our health, right? So, go with your main, always go with the biggest problems first and then go with the ones that are less important, right? So, of course, we know that mining produces a lot of red mud, which can clog waterways, rivers. If it's not disposed of properly, it is a health hazard. You talk about deforestation and removal of large amounts of vegetation, conflict with other land uses. Um, um, Isabel, you don't want to really go down that road where mosquitoes and those, but you're talking directly with respect to the hazard, it's the industry itself. What are the problems or the challenges with the industry itself, right? So the challenges would be that it is labor intensive and you have to pay high wages. It is also capital intensive, the industry, the lack of markets to sell the bauxite too. Remember, there's only one main market. They depend on the US. So also competition. Remember, Australia, China, India, right? Competition from other countries, right? Competition from other countries. Declining sources, Michaela, is in terms of, are you saying that with respect to bauxite itself? All right, so that is it for today. Those are the questions that usually come around economic activity. Was the session helpful today? Do you all feel a bit better going into your exam to answer questions on industries, primary activities? So those that we did, mining, petroleum is either or most of the time. They would give you either or. Then they give you fishing or forestry, and then those are mainly primary. Then they go into secondary, food processing and the garment industry or clothing, and then tourism. So we looked at bauxite mining and oil and gas, and also the refining part of it, which is secondary, right? So I hope you all understand that both of them could come, it straddles both primary as the raw material and then process as secondary with the refineries. Italia, you're welcome. Thank you, very helpful. I'm glad to know that it helped you and you understood my accent, right? Um, so tell me one thing that you'll learn today. You're welcome, Michaela, no problem. One thing that you'll learn today. Very good, Asa. So I'm glad that you learned a lot so that you can answer those questions when they come on the exam. So tomorrow is what, the Thursday? Tomorrow is it? So Friday is usually my off day to rest, so I won't do anything Friday. Saturday I am doing a crash course, so I will not be doing a live. So maybe Sunday and start. I'll do something on Sunday to finish up industries, look at tourism and food processing, finish up with that, and then we can get into weathering, which is really straightforward, and natural disasters. Yes, Michaela, Jamaican's main market is the US. And because of that, it means if they lose that market, then they don't have alternative markets to sell the bauxite to, right? So one thing y'all learned today before we go, I like to just summarize the class. One thing you learned, one thing that stood out for you today. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel, share with your friends who may also need help revising. No, you don't need to know all. You need to know on the syllabus, they give you either or. So this is how it goes. It's forestry or fishing, oil and natural gas and petroleum, or mining, food processing or garment industry, and then tourism. But I like to do, because they said industries in the Caribbean coming on your exam, I think that they might ask you, sometimes they ask you to describe two industries. So I think it's good to know, not all, but make sure that you know one inside out, right? Especially if they ask you for two, at least you have an idea, right? So basically, that is what they usually. Okay, nice. Thank you, Italia. Right? Thank you for subscribing and share with your friends. I would like to have more Jamaican students so we can hear their impact, their answers, and get more. So tonight, the news TTT, our news channel, is doing a feature on the School of Geography, so you can look out for it. They wanted to interview me, ask, why I started and so forth. And I really enjoy teaching and interacting with students. Good, Isabel. So Isabel said GNP is GDP plus foreign revenue. Excellent. And Orlando talked about the mining industries. Okay, so we will follow up. Maybe Sunday evening I'll do a live because Friday is my day off where I unwind, and Saturday I'm doing the crash course. The crash course is a paid thing, $200 if you're all interested. We're gonna go through all of the past papers on the broad topics for preparation. So have a good night, and I will see you all next week. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. All the best in literature exams tomorrow for those that are doing literature. I know literature is compulsory in a lot of schools. So, so really and truly, say a prayer, and I'm sure you will do well. You're welcome, Isabel. Okay, good night. I'm signing off now. Bye.